The MAT Unpacked, the podcast where we open up what good really looks like in a multi-academy trust. In each episode, Chris Whiting from Academy Advisory will be joined by trust leaders and specialists to share real stories, practical lessons, and usable advice to help you run stronger trusts and improve outcomes for learners. Welcome to the MAT Unpacked, and my name's Nell. I'm your facilitator, and as usual, Chris Whiting from Academy Advisory is here. Chris, we're on tour today. Where are we?
We're in Walthamstow in London, a creative hub, a wonderful place, and we're here with Sacha Corcoran MBE. Sorry,
makes you sound very grand.
Yeah.
How does it work with an MBE? Do you have that on your bank cards?
What tends to happen? No, we don't get on your bank cards, and I'm always miffed that I can't get it on my passport because I'd like to get an upgrade. But
you feel like you get fast track for that,
you
don't you?
can't add it on your passport, so it doesn't do anything for me really, other than I don't get it out a lot.
Well, you got it out. You got it out in the introduction.
You've mentioned it, so there you go.
There you are.
Got to talk about that.
Got it out.
Okay, fair enough. Well, today we're going to be talking about leadership, leading by example, and doing college differently, which I know, Sacha, you're a big advocate of. Before we get into it, let's talk about Big Creative Academy itself. Walking straight in, it feels very different from a traditional college environment. So for anybody who doesn't know, how would you go about describing what you do here?
I think for us, the main thing, and it was a strapline. I mean, I said, if I go back, I was given a vision to set up a creative academy. And it was very much that the original founder sat around the kitchen table and said, this is what we reimagine education to be like. And that reimagine education has been at the centre of what I do and how I do it. So for me, it's been about taking the ideology of how we reimagine education and bringing it into an environment where actually it's felt, you feel it. I think it's very easy to pay a lot of lip service to these things. So we do three things fundamentally, underpinned by reimagined education. That is developing talent. How do we get young people as rough diamonds who may not have done anything creative before, but we develop their talent? How do we transform their lives? And without making that sound grandiose, but how do we fundamentally transform their lives so they leave us with a clear line of sight to work, a golden thread to this is what I want to be and this is how I'm going to get there. And then on the back of that, how do we create a career for them? And it's those three things, and then we embed that into every single thing we do with a wraparound of a real focus on student well-being.
And that's not an easy thing to do with the neat situation that you have at the moment, with so many young people not able to find a job. Yeah. How are you finding that challenge here?
At the moment, we've got around 12% of young people in this country NEET. It's the highest level it's been in a long time. NEET, for those who don't understand, we're full of acronyms in education, not in educational training. And that means you've got young people who are in effect doing nothing. Now, education is compulsory to the age of 18. However, there are a significant number that drop off at 16, aren't picked up. And then you get a significant number again at 18 drop off because they leave education at 18 and there is nothing for them. Now, you could argue, well, hang on a minute, there's university, there's apprenticeships, there's jobs. All of those require a certain level of resilience and determination and skill to enter. So for us, it's really worrying because we're seeing a trend here where working class young people are really struggling to make an impact into employment. There are apprenticeships out there, but we are at a saturation point in terms of the number of graduates. So you've got graduates taking really low-paid jobs that typically a 17 or 18-year-old would normally do. So they're left, actually, with not really anywhere to go. There are apprenticeships out there, and we offer a fabulous suite of apprenticeships here. But equally, those applications for the apprenticeships are often saturated, again, with graduates. So it's a real worry for me about a young person at 18 who does not have the grades or wishes to go to university, what they do next. You know, it's hard, and I don't envy parents having to navigate that for them.
And it's a really uncertain world, especially, I mean, AI is affecting everything, but the creative arts probably more than anything, probably, if you think about.
But I think I'll challenge that. I think what we're trying to say is AI. There are certain jobs which AI inevitably will make more efficient and make easier to do. However, we are very much of the opinion that AI cannot replace human creativity. Fundamentally, creativity comes from imagination. AI robots don't have that level of imagination without us feeding it. So you're still going to need a creative person who types in that I want this, I need that, and have that vision to make it happen. So we are very much of the opinion that AI is a tool that can support young creatives in their role. It won't do the role for them. And we will continue to shout that because we don't want young people to be afraid to enter the creative industries because they don't believe there's going to be jobs there. There are going to be hundreds of them. And actually, it's the third biggest economy in the UK. It's worth over £100 billion. There are thousands of jobs in the creative industry. What we've got to do is not worry so much about AI, but worry about how the sector chooses to recruit. There's systemic change that's needed in how this sector recruits. Because without getting on my political soapbox, which I often do when I'm on panels, the sector recruits from who you know. And I always use the analogy that it's usually the chief exec's wife's yoga teacher's son that gets the opportunity because of this weird convoluted link to the person that makes the decisions. I don't have young people that have those networks. But what I can say to an employer, you are missing out on talent. Change the way you recruit. Party political broadcast over. But
that's a really good message to have.
It's interesting. I was going to ask you, what is the sort of problem that you're trying to solve? Is that the trying to connect into the industry in the first place? Because there are so many barriers for young people.
Yeah, I mean, if go back nearly 20 years, I worked for a government quango where my whole remit was to try and change the way the sector recruit. And if I fast forward 20 years, nothing's changed. It wasn't that I didn't have impact, it's that those at the top aren't willing to change. The sector is 94% white. It has been for as long as I have spoken about this issue. It is predominantly graduate rich, and it is a who you know sector. So if I've got a young person who isn't a graduate, who is not white, who doesn't have a network, how do they get in? And it's as blatant as that. There's no making this sound nice. The way the sector recruits is not fair, it's not equitable, and it is not allowing young creatives to start a career. And inevitably, most of them say, oh, you must have experience. My young people say to me, Miss, how do I get experience? If I'm not even given a foot through the door, how do I get experience? And why do you not want a diverse workforce? Because actually, you can't have creativity without diversity. So if you do not have a diverse workforce, then you are missing out on a range of opportunities to work with people that think differently, do differently. And diversity, so it isn't just about colour, it's about having more of our SEND young people going into creative workplaces. More
Neurodivergency.
Yeah, so I get quite cross about it because I've not seen enough change happening, and I know the talent I have in this building.
Yeah. And it feels like I can get on a political soapbox, I suppose, because it's only Academy Advisory I'd be destroying.
Well, of course, I love whoever's running the show because I work for them. Yeah.
But these days, with all the stuff taking down, diversity and equality initiatives, we haven't got anywhere near to where all of those initiatives were driving, have we? We've got nowhere near it. If you look at you're quite right about 94% white male. Look at boardrooms, look at football managers, where so many of the players are black, yet they're not given the opportunity when they get to the senior levels.
Well, with respect, it's the male pale and stale syndrome.
It is, yeah, and absolutely, and them trying to take and the political movements to take these things down when we need them probably at this point more than ever, and actually understand that it's not just about tokenism. It's the right thing to do. Yes, it's the right thing to do, but also there's a benefit to any organisation to have a broad range of opinions, of thought processes, of exposure to different cultures. From everything from sharing great culinary tips at work to actually having really effective governance that has a wide range of views. It is important. It does have a tangible benefit, and I think that people just don't realise that.
And my young people here who are from very diverse backgrounds don't want a tokenistic approach. They firmly buy into it should be the best person for the job, but they want to be given the opportunity to prove they're the best person for the job. So they can't even get across that initial hurdle. So I think here, for us, it's about we embed inclusivity into everything we do here. Inclusion is our number one priority. But once you bring a young person into that environment that puts so much importance on it, and then you push them out of the other end into a world that doesn't, or they can't see it in real time happening, they become disillusioned very quickly.
Yeah.
Let's talk leadership now then. I mean, I know you're often asked about your story. I'm assuming the way you lead, is that kind of part of where you come from and how you do it? Can you kind of put that into a sort of story for us and help us understand how you lead, or where you've come from?
Yeah, I mean, if you said to me, I think we've all sat and read hundreds of leadership books, and it's the same stuff sort of reimagined and regurgitated and everything else. The fundamental thing for me about leadership is authenticity. Have I got a leader in the room who eats, sleeps and breathes what she believes, and is she authentically herself? And that's what I stand on. That means I can be Marmite to some people, because what you see is what you get, and what I don't do is square off any round edges to fit that particular box or that particular room or that set of people. So I'm probably not your typical principal in that, I went through a difficult life. I didn't have the easiest childhood. I was raised by a single parent from the age of 4. Mum wasn't around a lot because she was basically trying to function as a parent. I didn't grow up in that nurturing environment. We grew up very much, is there food on the table? Clothes came from a second-hand shop. So as a young person, for me, identity wasn't even thought about. It was just survival. We'll get through. Then I ran away, from home, because actually, for me, it was all about searching for something that I wasn't getting in that environment. And I see that in so many young people, that if they're not having their needs met within the home, they'll look outside for it. So whether it was me running away, whether it's young people that join gangs, young people need to feel wanted and needed, and they will look for it anywhere they can get it. And me running away resulted in me falling pregnant at 16. I was homeless till I was 18, living in a homeless hostel with a baby. I had no contact with my family at that time, or not a lot of contact. So I began then really to reflect on what skills have I got that are transferable, that I can use, because I had no qualifications, didn't have any, the O-levels and CSCs. That tells you how old I am. I didn't leave with anything other than a couple, but I knew I was clever, because actually this weird currency by which we judge young people that, you have to have qualifications don't equal intelligence. They demonstrate you can remember something. So I remember thinking, when I was in the homeless hostel and having little or no money, no food and a baby, thinking, how the hell are you going to sort this out? And it was hard. It wasn't something that I did easily, but I knew I had to draw on the skills that I had. So what did I do? Well, I knew I was a good swimmer, randomly. I thought, right, let me get a job as a part-time lifeguard. So I saved up £10 a week from my income support to get enough money to pay to do the lifeguard course, to then become a lifeguard. Why? Because I could do casual hours and it could fit around my son going to nursery and school. And it was all of that thinking on your feet. Then I realised, actually, I quite like this. So then I became a gym instructor. And it was becoming a gym instructor that made me realise that I loved teaching. I loved that sharing of knowledge. And that is what led me into education. But back to the questioning point, I think it was all of that stuff I went through is what created that authenticity that I share as a leader, to say, actually, not only being authentic, but being vulnerable, and saying, actually, there were times in my life that shaped me as a leader now, but in that moment were really difficult, that resonate when you're talking as a leader to other people. Because people don't want to talk to leaders who are this polished version, who have gone through done school. I went to a private school, and there's nothing wrong with private school, but that this view of what a leader is in these top countries. I've been through a private school, and I've got great A-level grades, and then I went to Cambridge or Oxford, great universities, nothing wrong with them, but typically people have this view of what a leader is. And then they come with this polished version, because I've read 10 leadership books and they've all told me I need to do this. And people can smell a rat. There's nothing authentic in that. Don't quote Maslow to me. Don't quote all of these. Tell me about what makes you a leader. So for me, my life story is one that I not only talk very openly about, I share it with students as well. Because I want them to understand that your authenticity is your biggest quality.
But also, you've got this, when you're sharing that with kids here, or young adults, I should say, if you're looking at leaders, politicians, or school principal or CEO, it seems unobtainable, doesn't it? If it's the Eton, Oxford, Cambridge route, again, nothing wrong with them. But that's not me.
No.
I can't. It feels like a barrier to you being able to do that. But when you hear firsthand of someone that's been in a similar situation than you find yourself in now, and look where they are, that's inspirational. It's evidence that you can achieve. Because for a lot of people in the UK, they don't think there can be anything. They've got no motivation because they don't think there's any hope. What's the point in me putting some effort into themselves, into their education? Because I'm not going to get anything out of it.
The light bulb moment for me is every January, let's be honest, we all come back to work in January fed up. Christmas is over. The adrenaline has dropped.
Got a tax return.
Yeah, you got a tax return.
Great timing.
Yeah. And we all know about tax at the moment. Tax returns, the weather's rubbish. It's cold. It's miserable. You've broken your new resolution within 3 days, And my year twos, my students are here for 2 years, so it's like equivalent of an A-level programme. They come back a bit deflated because it's like, come on, we've got to get you through this last couple of terms to get you out to your next destination. So I do an assembly with them. And I say to them, right, we'll do an assembly with you. I said, I'm going to tell you about a girl. And for the most part of the assembly, they think I'm talking about a student. And I talk about this girl that's had this really difficult upbringing. And I go into far more detail than I've done in our conversation. I give them the warts and all story of what it was like growing up. And I take them on this journey because another thing about being a leader is storytelling. Storytelling is a fantastic skill if you can master it as a leader, because once you hook somebody into a story and that story is authentic, half your battle's won. So I take them on a journey and I tell them this story about this girl, and then the very last slide is, and that girl is me. And at that point, they're very sweet. I usually get a round of applause, and I said, I don't need a round of applause, but their jaws drop a little bit, because actually that very thing you said, okay, so if Miss can go from growing up in a single-parent household, very poor, to running away, to being homeless, to raising children by herself, to now having an MBE and running a school, anything is possible. And it's not because I'm a superhero, but it tells them that everything you're going through now shapes you. Harness it and use it to become a leader. And that's why I want my young people to be their leaders, their future leaders. You've just got to know how to take what you've gone through and use it.
Harness that energy.
And I always end every assembly with, your difficult beginnings are not a justification to fail. They are the very reason you must succeed. And that is my thing.
Can you write that down? Because I want to take that with me.
Yeah. but I have that on walls. I say it at the end of every assembly. So, so that it gets ingrained in them. Don't say to me, this, that. You're not going to fail your course and use that as a justification. Doesn't wash with me. Tough love kicks in. The very fact your life is difficult is the reason you must succeed.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse not to.
So you hear the phrase, don't you, leading by example, and it almost becomes a little bit of a cliche after a while.
Yeah.
However, it does sound like that is what you're doing day in, day out. So give us a little bit of a snapshot of how you're living that a little bit.
I mean, authenticity comes from the culture in this space, I could have gone down the road. I'm going to be a principal, and I'm going to be in a suit every day, and I'm going to have a PA, and they're going to create a barrier so nobody can access me, and I'm going to sit at my desk, and every time somebody sees me, they're going to sit up straight and go, oh my God, Sacha's in the building, and I'm going to wander the floor, and I'm going to expect complete silence, and I'm going to have hierarchy in place, and people are going to doff their caps when they see me. Or I could have done what I've done, which is actually not doing any of that. If you see me in a suit, people panic. Oh my God, who's in the building? Sacha's in a suit. Because most of the days I'm rocking up in my trainers, because I'm always in a competition with the students as to who's got the best trainers on. Because straight away, the first thing I want to do is break down any perception that respect is built on how somebody looks. Respect is built on how I treat you and how you treat me. So I remove this expectation that I need to dress a certain way as a principal. Then I don't have a PA. Why? Because there should be no barrier to me. Not because PAs aren't great and they aren't needed in big, but I don't need somebody saying to a student, yes, you can see Sacha, no, you can't. Any member of staff, any student can knock on my door, and if I say come in, it means I'm prepared to stop what I'm doing to speak to you. If I can't, I'll let you know when you can see me. So I've removed this idea that Sacha's something important. I am important, but I don't believe in hierarchy in the sense that we're all here with different job titles and we have different levels of accountability, but I am no more important than the person right now who is getting the lunch cooked for the students. That is seen when I'm around the building. You know, if there's something on the floor that needs mopping up and there's nobody around, I'm mopping it up. It sounds a bit of a cliche, well, lots of people do that, but consistently doing it, consistently getting your hands dirty. And then with the students, it's about thinking about my office. Now, if you go into my office, you'll see these two beautiful pieces of artwork of a young black girl and a young black boy. And I've been asked a couple of times, why do you got what's those on your wall? I said, because representation's important. When my young black students come into my office, they need to see a representation of themselves, not just a white woman sitting in an office. So you have to think all of the time about how is representation seen in the building, how is identity celebrated? My identity is one of informality. I want to be in my trainers. I want to be in my jeans. How do I converse and chat to people around the building? We have humour. We have banter. We have a relationship that goes beyond the have you done this, have you done that? And then with the students, it's that tough love. They can come to me and say, Miss, I've had a really shit day. And I'm like, I bet you it's not been as shit as mine. You know, and we sit down and we do a top trumps of disasters. Whose day's been worse? And by the end of it, that young person feels like, okay, she gets me. I've built a relationship that they're not afraid to come and tell me the next time they're having a bad day. So I guess in your answers to the question, it's about coming into a building that feels authentic, that doesn't feel contrived, that doesn't feel like it's staged, that doesn't feel like there's a principal trying to impress everybody, a principal that's vulnerable to say, actually, I'm having a rubbish day, or I've made a mistake, or I need some help with this. And that resonating right down to the young people who've been able to do the same.
That vulnerability. I can't say
Vulnerability.
that word. Vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'm from the West Midlands, you know. The word's difficult for us. You know.
We'll let you off.
It's really,
I never go north of Watford, you see. That's my problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
A lot of
Us
people from
Southerners
down
are
here
terrible.
don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I love London.
Yeah,
We come down a lot, but you don't come up.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is really important, and I've found that through my career as well, because it doesn't matter what job title you have. Everybody is part of that team, really.
Yeah.
I was going to say machine, but that's a bit too clinical. It's a team. And everyone's got the part to play in that, and everyone's equal, you know, and equality is a big thing that we have. In Academy Advisory, we don't, we vote. Whenever there's a big decision to make, we vote on it, and the directors go with what we think. So you believe in democracy, we live by it then. You know, and it's about that authenticity, isn't it? You know, it's very easy to go on Twitter and say, "Oh, I'm all for equality," but then actually you tell everyone what to do, and you walk around and you expect
leadership.
Yeah. But you know, But I have found that when you actually own a mistake, you know, you've got a challenge, and you can be vulnerable with people that are part of your team, or in your case, students. It does break down those barriers, because they stop seeing you. Even though you want them to see you as a level, you see them as a level, but they're doing that, you know, and it's on a podcast, I got one hand above the other one. They're looking up at you, even though you're looking across at them. And actually vulnerability is the way to bring yourself down on their level, in their eyes, and have that sort of more open interaction.
Yeah, well, as senior leaders, we have to role model the behaviours and the culture. You know, we have values here. And, you know, and there are some schools of thought that say our values are just words on paper, but they are things to hold people to account to: kindness, respect, inclusivity, and all of those things. Because fundamentally, when you come into this building, irregardless of the level you're at, you're part of a team. And removing the hierarchy, think, yes, of course, I have a senior leadership team. You have directorates and responsibilities, but we are part of a much bigger team. That machine you talk about, it is a machine, because if every cog isn't turning, it doesn't work. And I have a responsibility and a duty of care to my team, and I always say that my staff are my biggest asset, not the building, not the furniture. The staff are the biggest asset. if you don't look after that team and you don't have a shared responsibility and you don't have a shared accountability and you don't have a team that's afraid to say, you know what, I've made a mistake, and you don't have, and nobody wants a blame culture. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting somebody to make the same mistake over and over again, but actually having that ability to come and knock on my door and say, Sacha, I think I've messed up. And no, what you're not going to get is bashed over the head. You're going to say, right, how do we first of all solve this, and how do we not make it happen again? And that allows people to recognise that we're human. I make mistakes. We're all human.
And the output of all of this, I think it's where you probably won't say it is, but in the office, you've got lots of brilliant things in there, student artwork. You've also got the Ofsted judgment from this place in 2024, and it's outstanding in all areas, isn't it? And that's I know that it's not all about that, but it goes some way to show about the ethos and your culture that you have here and how it's judged.
I think for me, we set this place up in 2014. Well, I got the role in 2014, and I was bunged in an office with a computer and a phone and said, make it happen. So the building we're in, I had to design it from scratch. It was literally, we'll house you temporarily, bung some kids in there. So the first 3 years, we were in a temporary old office building, trying to turn that into a creative college. And we got good in the first Ofsted, and I thought that's an achievement because we're not even in a building. But then, to have it sort of almost bang on 10 years later, get that outstanding and everything. And, I burst into tears. Not for the accolade of but just more of the having somebody acknowledge the hard work that has gone in from me and my team to get us to this point. Because this isn't an easy environment. These are the most amazing kids, but they're not easy young people because they come with a lot of support needs. Staff are working in an environment that's highly pressurised with sometimes not enough resources, not funded at the right level. So actually to get outstanding, knowing that we give very little, we're not given a lot to do what we do, for me was a measure of the success of everybody in this building and a nod from those in higher offices saying, you're doing all right. And actually that's what I went home with. You know what, Sacha? Done all right. And that's for you've gone for people. You've gone from being a runaway teenager to get into an organisation that's been judged as outstanding. I think you can get off your treadmill now and say, you've done your job.
Yeah, you've done pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's also good. I know there are in places that get to that by almost throwing money they haven't got at it. You haven't done that. It's financially very sustainable. You've had surpluses in the most different. It's really challenging to be able to do that, especially as a single academy trust. We've got to change the name of the podcast for this, by the way, because it should be the MAT Unpacked.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
For this one, not the MAT Unpacked.
Yeah. I mean, look, being candid. If I give you an example of this year, we've got an inflation rate in the country running at around 3%. I've been given an increase on the Department for Education budget. We get a budget every year of 0.5%. Just those two figures alone, the math doesn't work. You're not allowed as a college to submit a deficit budget. So there you go into the pulling rabbit out of hats territory. How do I make it work? And how do I generate a surplus? Because we all know that things break. We all know that boilers need fixing. You've got to have a surplus in the bank. You also know you can't rely on your reserves to pay your staff because that's financial suicide. So actually, the education part of what we do is the bit that I'm inspired by and love. But we are more and more running businesses. It's not just running an education. It's not just running a college.
Yeah.
There is a level of financial accountability to keep it going when the government says, we're not going to give you any more. And at the same time, you've got teachers that want pay rises, support staff that want pay rises that should be paid more.
Yeah, if you look at those metrics as well, you think, well, staff are probably going for 4%, and you've got 0.5% in funding.
Yeah.
And you think that sounds bad enough, but it's worse than that.
Yeah.
Because what you forget is with incremental drift, and that means an M5 teacher will go to an M6 will go to M5, M5 to M4. The actual percentage increase, unless you have turnover of staff, it's probably more like 7-8%.
Yeah, because you have people that work their way up.
Yeah, because people are going up a scale, and then that scale's going up 4%.
Yeah.
And you've got 0.5% more in terms of funding to be able to deal with that. it's already breaking for a lot of trusts.
I mean, as somebody that got ungraded in her CSE maths in school, I have learnt now that the math ain't mathing. But it also goes to show, you know, and I'm all for, you know, we have got a policy that the student must retake their GCSE maths until they get a 4. Don't start me on that. But actually, accounting, maths, you know, somebody who's not a maths expert back in school days, I know now when I'm looking at my budget sheet, that doesn't balance with that. And I have to make those decisions as to what we're going to do, because I have a duty of care to my team and my staff to keep people in jobs, to pay them a fair wage as much as I can afford to. And, you know, my metric is that around 76% of my income will go on staffing. That leaves me with 24% to run the building. Gas, electric, food, trips, consumables, supporting the kids, bursaries, hardship funds, everything else, you know, it's not a lot that's left at the end of it. And actually a lot of schools and colleges run on goodwill, because there's a lot of people that go over and above here to stay that little bit late, to make that show happen, to do what they need to do, to make sure these kids have a fantastic time.
One section then, let's just move away from the money. I know that's tough because it's such a big part of what you do, of course. But let's talk about the nuts and bolts of actually making it work. And you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of what you do here is connecting pupils to the creative industry, giving them a way in. Yeah. So how do you make that work? I mean, I'm talking, say, curriculum, behaviour. I mean, one that always sort of catches attention is, you know, colleges don't necessarily have a uniform. They do kind of have a dress code. I know you do that differently as well. So talk us through those kind of, how that all works.
Yeah, it's interesting. So at the start of the year, the students in the first instance meet 2 versions of me. They meet the version which is, hi, welcome, brilliant, blah, blah, blah. Then they get the other version of me, which starts to set out the expectations. The first and foremost, and I'll go through some of our USPs, I guess, industry is at the heart of what we do here. Credibility in the classroom is one of my phrases. Nobody wants to be taught geography by a teacher that's never travelled. So therefore, if you're going to be taught fashion design, if you're going to be taught music, you're going to be taught dance, there need to be people that are current practitioners. So we take pride in employing people who are qualified teachers or currently being trained as a qualified teacher, but actually do the job that these young people want to do. You know, if I want to be a music producer, let me be taught by somebody who produces music, because we don't want textbook teachers. So this environment really celebrates having industry immersed into what we do. We even have a resident employer on site, so we have an office on site, so we give employers free office space, so, which is unheard of in London, so they can run their micro business or their freelance business from their office space, but in return they provide work experience. They design some of the industry briefs for the kids to work on. They go into the classroom and do some workshops. So the whole idea is that we bring industry into the classroom. That in itself makes kids sit up and go, right, okay, they're serious about what they do here. And it's not somebody who talks about, when I did music 30 years ago. Listen, we want people that have been teaching for a long time, but we also want people that are current in their practice. So teachers are always being upskilled in vocational education, and we work with the University of the Arts a lot to make sure that what we're teaching is current. So first and foremost, the curriculum has to be taught by specialists. Then we have to make sure that the building is filled with industry standard equipment, because there's no point me saying to an employer, this person's job ready, but actually they're not upskilled on the latest software or the latest music studio. They need to know what they're talking about. So we invest a huge amount of money in film and TV studios, editing suites, so kids are tech ready and can talk confidently with employers about, I can use this, I can do this. So you've got the industry equipment, you've got the industry in the classroom. Then wrapped around that then is ensuring that when the young person comes here, and going back to the point about uniform, that they can be authentically themselves. We work with them a lot on identity. So if you're going to be a performer, what's your brand? Who are you? What makes you different? And actually difference comes through expression. How do they express themselves around the building? Celebrating that young person that comes in with a completely different dress starter to their peer. And actually what's celebrated is we have fantastic culture days where we celebrate everybody's culture and everybody comes in with their flags. We've got Pride Week happening this week. So the students will come in and they all celebrate each other's individuality. They celebrate inclusion. And then that's replicated in the staff that we have here, a very diverse student staff population. So the way the place is run and the USPs is all about keeping it as real as we can. As the kids will say, keep it real, miss. You know, it's that. Keep it real.
Wow, is that one still going? That
Yeah.
Keep It Real
Keep
was
It
around
Real
when
was-
I was young as well.
I know, that's some of
stood
the few.
test of time.
A lot of
hasn't
them
it?
I don't understand now. It is a completely different language, but I do ask them to upskill me on that because I want to know if they're dissing me. So I need to have my eyes. Okay, that was a diss. Yeah, but on the most part, yeah, keep it real, miss. Yeah.
Watch out for 6'7".
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Now my granddaughter's on the 6'7". I'm
I
like,
think
shut
that's
up.
done now. Someone told me there's a big meme reset last year.
Yeah.
It's a big meme
move
reset. We can
past
move.
No.
6'7" now.
What is it,
Yeah.
7'8"
I
next?
might.
What?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Now the young people here have got their own language. You know, it's a complete. You know, but you know what generation didn't? You know, people talk
Yeah.
about it. Oh, the kids don't talk properly. There's you did it. We all
Yeah.
did it.
Everyone
Every
did it.
generation had their own language.
My
you know?
14-year-old does it all the time.
You know, so for me, I think it's about that immersive space. You're walking and you feel like you're in a workplace, and the being taught part is just a bit we do as a byproduct of everything else that's going on.
I want to talk at some point about the employer links because that's with your sort of college, the stage of education you're at. That's really important, isn't it? Because you can't get every pupil into a job when they leave. Of course you can't. But where have you seen the success that you've been able to actually get employers and engage with employers to look at your students and give them a chance?
I think you have to be bolshy, you have to bang on doors, you have to shame people into getting involved in something. Or equally, there's employers that are totally understanding the problem, totally understanding the sector needs to change the way it thinks, and will bang on your door. So we work with companies like Mother London, who do fantastic projects with the young people, get them down to their advertising agency and really immerse them. We've had young people go off and do apprenticeships at ITN and are now behind cameras, you know, filming things. We've worked with Universal Records, getting, you know, kids into record labels. You know, we work with a fabulous company called Build Hollywood. It's a project every year. They set a brief for our art and design students, and it's in a brief that allows the young person to interpret a theme. So they might just say the word is layers, for instance. That's a theme we've done this year across the art and design area, media area. But they'll give them a theme, and then they choose winners, and those winners have their artwork put on billboards all around the borough. Now, as a young person at 16, to walk past their artwork that's right up there, you know, it's an amazing thing for them because you are now a published art. You know, it's shown. It's there. So a lot of the employers that come in to us really want to work with us on interesting projects. Waltham Forest, as well as a borough, is uniquely creative. First borough of culture, fantastically supportive of what we do in terms of the way we champion the arts. We've got a plethora of young, fledgling creative businesses in the area who are also, in the way they think and feel, want to engage with us. We've had young people work on community projects for the borough, redesigning the outside of a community space, for instance. So the employers are integral, and we are lucky that we have employers that do want to work with us. Red Bull, L'Oreal, others. I mean, the list is endless, but we need more.
Yeah.
You know, we need more. And it's not, like I said, it's not just about saying give this young person a job. Think differently. Could I give them an industry brief to work on? Could I run a research project through them before we actually go to market with this product? Can I get a 16 to 19 person's view on this? Because that will help shape a script or shape an advert. Actually, they are your consumer. As much as they are your talent, they're also your consumer.
Yeah, and
utilise them.
You're giving an opportunity for them to start filling their CV
Yeah.
up. Because that's often one of the things, isn't it? Oh, we want somebody experienced.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you someone's got to give someone the opportunity to get experience, otherwise you're never going to have it, are you?
And give them a voice. You know, I say I want my young people to be positive disruptors.
I like that.
Yeah, you know, go out there, disrupt the status quo, disrupt the rhetoric, say something different, speak your mind positively, because that's really important, because we need young people to understand there's a way of being heard. And that's something we need to harness with them to understand, to be taken seriously and be listened to. You have to be eloquent. You need to funnel your message. You need to get it in front of the right people. But equally be disruptive. You know, be disruptive. We applaud that.
Yeah, absolutely. In the right ways, as we said before the podcast.
Yeah.
One other thing I just wanted to say is as you come out of the tube station here into Walthamstow, is you come to Blackfriars.
Blackness Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got that mural just there, about the sort of where the home of creative people. It's not exactly those words, but and this great big heart that's flashing at you. It's just such a wonderful feel, and the whole area has got that sort of creative feel about it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about in the first 2 podcasts was about schools being a mirror of the community, or and you can really see the theme when you come into this part of town.
Yeah, we couldn't be in a better place. As I say, we're very supported by the local authority, being part of the Borough of Culture, and actually wanting some of our young people to become the employers of the future and be those next fledgling businesses that are setting up, being able to support them in actually becoming freelancers, and actually in turn putting money back into their communities is really important.
I think what's come across in this podcast is, the kind of culture that you really runs top to bottom. That seems to be a big part of what you do. So for any other Academy Trust leaders who are listening and they kind of go, that's amazing, but how do I do that here? What is there one sort of piece, and it's really hard to round up into one piece of advice, but is there something you could say to them going, this is how you start?
I'll probably go full circle to the authenticity thing again. When you get given that job title as principal, don't sell your soul to the devil. Don't feel that your focus has to be ticking boxes for Ofsted, ticking boxes for the Department for Education and all of that. They're important, yes. But fundamentally, what do you believe in terms of how education should be run and delivered? And we will all do it differently. There is no wrong or right way. I'm not here to say that it shouldn't be this, it shouldn't be that. But go with your gut. Go with what you know will get the best results and will allow the young people that come into your organisation to flourish. And you have to look at your audience. I do things here the way I do because of the audience that I have, the type of young people that I work with. They respond to a nurturing environment where well-being is at the heart of what we do, because so many of them need so much support put in place before we even think about the teaching and learning. In an environment where actually you may be having young people that don't need as much support, your take on it might be differently. But fundamentally, don't come in and say, right, what does the Department for Education want me to be like? What does Ofsted want me to be like? No. What do you want to be like as a leader? And what, if you've got to the point of becoming principal, you're doing something right, because you've got to that point. But don't then think you have to fundamentally change, and don't run to the nearest leadership book and open up the page that says how to be a CEO, because that's not what leadership is. That's a well-crafted script that's allows somebody to earn a lot of money off a book. Well done. But that's not leadership. Take from it, but don't get absorbed into, they say, ChatGPT says I need to do this, this and this. No. Who are you as a person? What are your beliefs? What are your values? And how does that shape your culture?
Chris, any final thoughts before we close the podcast episode?
Oh God, that's a really bad thing. I haven't got anything. But yeah, you got any
Have
thoughts?
I stunned you into
I have
silence?
no thoughts.
First time ever.
Yeah.
I know it's never normally quiet, is it?
No. Do you know what? I was actually thinking, and probably got to edit this out anyway, but I remember when I was in a large accountancy profession, audit place, I remember a partner there who was saying exactly the opposite of what Sacha said today, and I'm definitely on Sacha's side. He said, when you come to work, you wear a mask. Yeah. You know, that mask of professionalism and the mask of this, and the only people that know me are in my private life. And I heard him say that, and I thought, I never want to be like you. You're at work for such a long period of your life. I want to be me all the time. I don't want to pretend anything, and I can't, to be honest. I mean, even if I wanted to.
And that's exhausting as
well. Couldn't, yeah.
If you want to burn out as a leader, put on a pantomime 24/7. You can't do it, because then when the mask does slip, because it will, suddenly you've left yourself with nowhere to go, because the people won't recognise that person.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was thinking about, because my mind went into two forks in the road then. The other bit of, and I'm not a principal, but from an outsider, what I see in really good leaders is that they build a team around them, because the ones that think becoming a principal is or head teacher is a very difficult thing to do. You were an excellent educator, and that's why you are now a head teacher. You weren't necessarily exposed to HR, to present to a board, to understanding the financial reports, to understanding how you keep cybersecurity sorted and the estates maintained and all of this stuff. And the leaders that do it badly are the ones that think that they have to do it all. And the best ones allow, as going back to what Sacha said about authenticity, they're authentic, but they also allow the other people around their team to be authentic as well and lead together, really, as a team. The things you're good at, get someone that's great at the stuff you're bad at next to you, because we can't do everything.
That's a nice place to leave it, I think. Chris, thank you.
So
Sasha,
I did think of something.
We did. I know, only stunned silence for a moment. So that was good. Sasha, don't go anywhere because we're going to have you on our next podcast episodes. Talk about another subject, which is great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the MAT Unpacked. If you found it useful, please subscribe or follow the show and share it with a colleague in your trust. And if you want a specialist partner to strengthen your assurance, improve your risk management, and give your board real confidence, speak to the team at Academy Advisory. You'll find us on LinkedIn or visit our website, academyadvisory.com.